Hi, my name is Danny Wright,
Hi, my name is Tyler Wright, and
and
welcome to
welcome to
TheatreQs.
TheatreQs.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Welcome to TheatreQs. I wanted to start today's episode with some thoughts on the current state of the arts, so bear with me for this scripted part. I think that this is especially important to address within our current political and social landscape because the arts make the world a better place. The arts have been a huge part of my life for a very long time. They've shaped who I am as a person and made me empathize with others in a much deeper way. The beautiful thing about theater is that no matter where you stand or sit, the stage, the house, backstage, wherever, you will take and learn something from the show. That's the goal, right? Everyone involved should find a piece of the show that makes them a better person. Everyone should identify some part of themselves or someone they know and use it to find a new perspective on life. Theater is inclusive. It gives people who so often feel voiceless a voice, a place, a safe haven to be themselves and experience the world in a new way, to feel accepted. I do theater to make the world a better place, to give people love, light, and hope in a world that so desperately needs it. When the arts are threatened, a part of me hurts. A part of the world hurts. A part of every person who needs a safe space to be themselves hurts. Theater's impact is huge. It reaches every walk of life. Theater is my life. It is one of the reasons that I wake up every morning. I hate to see it be threatened in the way that our society is threatening it today. As an arts community, we can write to our congresspeople, write to arts advocates, and make our voices heard. We have to continue to support the arts, our community, inclusivity, and voices that need sharing, one day at a time. One more dawn, one more day, one day more. Thank you. Now, I think we need to move this intro along. Things are moving too slow. Here to pick up the pace with a fun fact about the musical The Last 5 Years is Jaden Peterson, who is directing that show at the Cabaret Theater at the Temple of Music and Art here in Tucson on July 11th and 12th. Take it away, Jaden.
The Last 5 Years is Jason Robert Brown's third published work, for which he wrote the music, lyrics, book, and orchestrations. Brown has stated that the show is partially inspired by his own experience with divorce, and as such, the characters and emotion on display are very authentic, coming from someone who's experienced the content of the show. One of the things that makes The Last 5 Years most unique is the orchestration. Most Broadway pits have some sort of drums or other percussive elements. However, The Last 5 Years contains a 6-piece orchestra made up of a piano, 2 cellos, a violin, a bass, and a guitar. In this way, the lack of percussive elements creates a very interesting and unique sound when it comes to the tonal landscape of the show.
Thank you so much, Jaden. My guests today are two incredibly talented performers. One has stage-managed countless local productions, headed one of Tucson's leading youth theater organizations, and been an events manager and volunteer coordinator for multiple large events and organizations. The other has performed around Tucson in shows like Les Miserables, Matilda, $1 Million Quartet, Gutenberg, and more. They will both be performing in The Last 5 Years, directed by Jaden Peterson, on July 11th and 12th. Danny and Tyler Wright, welcome to TheatreQs. Danny, I'll start with you. How did you get started in theater?
I got started in theater really in like second grade. I was in my second grade play. I was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and I loved it so much. And then my mom got me started in Tom Thumb Players. It used to be a children's theater company here in Tucson. And so I started acting in Tom Thumb Players, loved theater all through elementary school, middle school, high school. And it was in high school when my theater director suggested that I look into stage management and direction and things like that. And a way to kind of like I have some strengths that, like, you could call it OCD, you could call it control freak, but so anyway, so then I really just started doing more stage management and technical theater and scenic design, and so that's what I studied in college.
Awesome. Tyler,
Yeah.
how about you?
I actually didn't do theater until high school. I was in the Tucson, Arizona boys chorus as a kid, which got me comfortable in front of audiences, I guess. And then in high school, discovered it was a lot of fun and that's actually where Danny and I met, at Catalina Foothills High School. And then I went and studied musical theater at BYU for a couple years before then switching to a degree in computer science and making theater my passion that I do on the side.
That's quite a switch.
It is quite a switch. There's not a whole lot of overlap between the singing and dancing classes and the programming courses, so it took me a while to get out of there. But I'm grateful for all the training I had, both in the theater classes and in the programming classes.
Well, I mean, there could be overlap if you try hard enough, I guess.
Boy, I really tried, Nate, and I remember one of my finals was I made a big stage management theater call sheet or call board where you could take attendance and set up fittings and things like that. And I remember everyone in my programming class, they just didn't get what it took to put on a theatrical production and why you would want software to kind of help you do that. But that was my hardest, to try to join those two disciplines together.
So you both went to BYU. I'm curious kind of how you ended up there. Was there a draw, or was that just the place to go?
Well, so
Yeah.
who do you
Oh, I'll start.
Okay,
Yeah.
go first.
Well, for me, I was going to the University of Arizona at first, and the BYU is a religious school, or you don't have to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to go, but around that, religion was a an area where that did end up being part of the decision for me to transfer to BYU, and really just knowing it has a really robust theater program, and that is really highly celebrated. And so it was, there was the draw there too. So yeah.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, BYU, you saying it was the place to go. I mean, for me and my family, and being a member of the church, it was for sure the place to go. All of my older siblings had gone, and so it was, a place I was trying to get to. But they do, and they still do, and they did have a really, really great musical theater program. And so it was something. Sorry. I don't know. There's as far as I can tell, there's no fire in my house, but I've got fire alarms going off. Apologies. Anyway, BYU does have a really great theater department and a really great musical theater department. So I considered myself very, very lucky to go there and get the training there that I did.
Did you guys met at Catalina Foothills High School? Was it
Yes.
just a coincidence that you ended up going to the same college?
No, it wasn't a coincidence. We met, we met in high school. We became best friends, in the later high school years, and we're in band together and we're in theater together. I wasn't a member, of the LDS church, and so that's something that Tyler kind of introduced me to and stuff. And so it definitely was due to our closeness, had a major influence on me, transferring to BYU and just becoming so close. I mean, we had talked about, even in high school, we had talked about oh my gosh, wouldn't it be cool if we got married and and trying to be, not to There's a lot. There's a lot that goes on there
How much time do we have?
Which
to
I'm sure we
unpack
might
all of
touch
this?
on,
Yeah.
touch on and everything. But yeah, so it was just it's been an interesting journey. We've been really, really close for a very long time. I mean, going on like 25 years now.
So when did you guys move back to Tucson? We'll start with you, Tyler. And was there a pull back to Tucson? Like what, or did you just want to move back?
Yeah, there were a few factors.
Was it the place to be?
So it was. So I graduated with a degree in computer science, and Danny and I, we were at BYU for a while, and then we had been friends for a long time. We got married there. We started a family while I was at BYU, and then I was working up there in Utah for a little bit, and one of the factors was it's too cold there. There's too much snow. I didn't want to be there anymore, shoveling snow outside my driveway for sure, and I wanted to go back home where there was no snow. Also, a lot of my family's here, and I genuinely, honestly just love Tucson as a place. I think it's got so much character. I think it's, just I think it's actually a really, really special place. And so I looked for jobs here in Tucson so that I could specifically come back here and live here where we wanted to be. And so we moved back here, and I worked for IBM for a little bit. And it was not long after we moved back that I started getting involved in theater again, that we were looking at, what is happening in the theater scene, in the local community theater scene. And one of the first things we did is Danny and I were both performers in Les Miserables with Arizona Onstage Productions back in like 2014, I think it was. And discovered that, discovered that Tucson has this really vibrant community theater, community. And I've really, really enjoyed it and kind of gotten it involved wherever we can and as much as we can ever since then.
And Danny, how about you?
Yeah, so we were married at the time, so we came, so same kind of thing, really wanted to come back to Tucson to be near family, and the climate is really great. We really like I have always liked the artistic and natural vibe of Tucson. There were that things that, I don't know, just didn't totally fit me in Utah. And also just like, I don't know, with my career in theater, because while, Tyler was working at IBM and other places, I was doing theater freelance. So I was stage managing events and some larger concert events, and then also doing film as well, being doing assistant directing in film and stuff like that. And so it made it nice. A lot of that was so flexible with me doing that freelance, that wanting to come back to Tucson to be near family and ensure that as we're raising children and everything, this is an environment that we wanted to be in. We really, really love Tucson.
Danny, during high school and college, had you always kind of been more interested in the technical side of theater and directing and stage managing, or were you an actor first?
I was definitely an actor first, but I think it's because I just didn't know about, everything involved in technical theater, especially in how creative technical theater is, because I've also always been a really analytical person. As much as I am really creative and love to perform and express myself in that way, I also am very I love the sciences. I love math. I mean, initially when I was going to college, I was going to be an architect. And so what was exciting to me about stage management and being introduced to different technical professions is just how, for me, it was a culmination of that analytical side and that creative side. And so what I love about stage management, what I love about directing, what I love about designing is how I just love storytelling in general, and how stories can be told through so many different senses. I love just learning things in general. So like diving into research and diving into design and diving into like motivations and stuff. And so being on the technical side kind of allowed me to not just focus on one track through that, like as a performer, you're kind of just focusing on your one track. And I loved, especially as a stage manager, like calling a show, like a stage manager calling a show, like once the director finally departs, the stage manager is like ultimately responsible to ensure that that show is being told in the way that it should be. And I've loved being involved, in all aspects of that, but mostly just having that like overseer communication way of having things come together. And I think most of my experiences in stage management and directing, because also just as a communicator, I think one of my strengths is really communicating. So like handling production teams and ensuring that each member of the production team is really making sure that their vision is realized, and that we keep our sights that the ultimate goal is to tell a really compelling story, and how we can go about making sure that that story is realized.
So have you guys both worked together professionally before the last 5 years, kind of combining your two sides of artistic expertise?
I mean, a little bit, right, Tyler? I mean,
Yeah.
we've done
SAPAC,
trying to think.
Yeah. I've been involved in that and performing. So let's see. One of the things, there's been plenty of times where you have stage managed a show that I've been a part of.
Totally.
Like that has happened a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, that's happened dozens of times. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then even Gutenberg, which was the last Not Those Wright Brothers production that my brother and I did, we really, Carson and I, my brother and I, put on Gutenberg the musical, and we did a lot of the creative and a lot of putting it together, but we also really relied on Danny's expertise to, oh my gosh.
To put fires out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, to
Computer science and
give us a, yeah, sorry about that. We really relied on Danny to stage manage the show, really put another eye on it, and she actually made all of our hats for that as well. And every time we put it on,
I take a lot of
she's
pride in
hats.
the important hat maker.
A lot of Sharpies.
Yeah, a lot of Sharpies, a lot of hats. So, yeah, no, I mean, like, it feels like we're always collaborating on things, but the last 5 years is probably the most that's been just like, hey, it's the two of us, let's do it. And then even then, we brought in Jaden because we're like, it's always good to have an outside perspective on things at all times. And Jaden, our director for the last 5 years, has just been fantastic with that.
Have you, Tyler, what was your and Carson's kind of idea? What was the genesis behind Not Those Wright Brothers?
Well, basically, the two of us really wanted to put on Gutenberg the musical, and we needed we needed a company basically to license under, and we said, okay, well, we're the Wright brothers. There's maybe something there. People think of the Wright brothers, but they're going to think of those other Wright brothers. We're not those Wright brothers. And that's kind of how we came up with the name. We're not those Wright brothers, Carson and I doing Gutenberg. And it was really just one of those things where he and I we heard that show for the first time, and we said, this is for us. We have to do this. We're going to make it happen, even if we have to put it on ourselves. And so we did. Very similar to the last 5 years, how, Danny and I heard this show a long time ago. We said we have to do this at some point, and now we're just making it happen.
What's the process of acquiring the rights to a show as a, smaller, more independent production company?
I mean, as far as I know, it's really similar to some similar process to, any size company. You do have to have a company, so that involves having like an EIN and things like that. But really, just contacting the licensing, like making an account on their, on their website, and the licensing um websites or organizations usually, depending on what show you're wanting to do, there's usually a specific licensor to work through. And then you just let them know about the production, how many people are going to be there, what venue it's going to be in, and how much you're going to charge for tickets, if you're going to charge for tickets. And then, they give you a quote and let you know how much it'll be and stuff. And yeah, it can feel like a daunting process, but really, like, once you go through it, and my work with CYT Tucson and stuff, and allowed me to really move more into like the theater management side of like those operations management and licensing and things like that. And yeah, once you go through it, it's actually a pretty simple process.
So that's a good segue. You both have worked with CYT and are working with CYT, Danny as the board president and Tyler as the new artistic director. What's the best part for you both about kind of getting the opportunity to shape an educational organization and, provide theater education, which is something that's really important?
I am so passionate about that. And I think it's something that I only got involved. We hesitated, like, as we had kids, we were like, okay, well, we both like theater, but we don't want to like shove our kids into theater, and but as we've seen, like, some of our kids have a passion for that, and just seeing them grow in that space and in confidence in that space has just been really exciting. As part of CYT Tucson, like, there's a requirement that like parents become really involved and donate a certain amount of time and stuff. And so when we first got started, got our oldest child involved, and as I was volunteering, I was like, I'm happy to volunteer like at any specific level you want. I do have experience in these realms, and so just started volunteering to stage manage their productions, and just it's such a community, in any theater community, any theater like company, who you're working with a lot of the same people sometimes, and you get to know people. I mean, like, having a supportive artistic community is so exciting, So then a few years ago, I became board president, and then I've been working on stepping back and stepping down from the board as Tyler took interest and applied to be the artistic director. But it's been really fun being a part of the youth's theater journey. Yes, it's such a great theater is such a great space to learn empathy and to learn confidence and to learn how to show up in the world and how to make to change in the world. Like, I'm very committed to doing theater for good, and whether that is just making someone think about something a little differently, whether it's something to learn about a different person's story, however we can expand goodness, through the performing arts. And so for the past little while, that's been at CYT for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Tyler, what are your goals as you're stepping in as artistic director?
Yeah, well, I mean, coming into this role, I mean, I feel like I held back as long as I could with CYT, that, our kids were involved, and then Danny was heavily involved. And, for me, I felt for a long time like, oh, is this, something that I would be good at, working with the kids and everything. And then I had the opportunity. I finally stepped in and directed their production of SpongeBob the Musical last year, and it was such a great experience. I loved seeing the kids grow, not only as performers but as people, and just really loved it so much that I wanted to be involved as much as possible. And in continuing to be there and show up, the role of artistic director seemed like a really good fit for me. one of the things I'm really excited to do is really mentor and sort of guide a generation of young theater performers. What I love about what I've noticed about Tucson now, because I grew up here and went to high school here, there's so much amazing talent, and it's because there's so many opportunities here in Tucson. What I love about CYT is one of the things we believe in is character over competition, and that goes within our organization, but also our organization collaborates with so many other theater organizations, other youth organizations, and it's because the more opportunities there are for youth and for any theater performer, really, the more opportunities there are, the more it lifts everybody up. It's one of those, rising tide raises all ships sort of thing. And, that's one of the things I really like to have the opportunity to do as an artistic director, is really work together with everybody else in Tucson that's just really trying to make the arts special and an amazing thing, because it is an amazing thing. It really helps us grow as people, and helps us show up in ways that not many other things really can.
Well, I think, kind of tying back to what Danny said, I think the idea of using theater for good is so important. So I thank you both for, bringing that here in Tucson. Danny, you mentioned you have a background in event management and stage management. What's the difference between stage managing or event managing a larger event like a concert versus a theater performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it really, even the size of like the theater company makes a difference. Sometimes there's people wearing like multiple hats, and I think a lot of times in the larger scheme of things, there just ends up being more people, to interact with, So I'm production if I production stage manager for a theatrical performance, or for a production, there is going to be working with the designers and working with the director and taking notes of rehearsals and doing rehearsal reports, and then running tech and calling the show. But it might be different than, like, for example, another show where I'm production stage manager on is for Stadium of Fire, which is a big stadium like concert show up in Utah each summer for the 4th of July. And I'm production stage manager, but there are a lot of people doing a lot more over me. It's like it's broadcast, so then you have like your whole team, your directors and your producers and your your whole video team that's doing stuff. So while I might be overseeing the rehearsals similar to a theatrical production and contacting cast members and like being like the liaison between like different organizations running rehearsals with Rascal Flatts is our title performers this year.
Wow.
So if I'm like talking with their tour manager and making sure that they know when to come to rehearsals and stuff like that, and with our other cast members and things like that, we have there's like 1,000 dancers, so then like talking to those dance company people, ultimately it's just making sure everyone knows what they're doing and when they're supposed to do it, but that can just take different forms depending on like the size of the production. But yeah.
And then kind of a different comparison, Tyler, you've done a lot of different shows, like you said, from Les Mis to Gutenberg. So how does your acting approach change from show to show? Because Les Mis is not Gutenberg.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're more similar than you think. It's funny because I do a lot of theatrical productions and I do a lot of concert type things. And one of the things that I think I bring to the concerts that I do a lot of times I do this concert right now that everybody else on stage is playing an instrument, and some of them are playing several instruments and singing at the same time. And I'm just like one guy in the middle of the stage, just standing there singing, right? And so I ask myself, like, why do they need me? What do I bring to the table here? And I think it is because of my acting training from being in shows, whether it is Les Mis or Gutenberg or anything like that. When you sing a song, uh, you have to do more than just hit the notes, right? You have to convey the message. You have to make the audience feel something, not just because of what the words and notes are, but also how the message is conveyed. And so I feel like they keep me around in those concert settings because I feel like one of my strengths is I can take a song and really act it in the way that you might a monologue, you know? What is the purpose of this song? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to get out of it? What are the tactics you're using? And so I really approach every role kind of that same way as far as like, okay, what is this character's objective? What are they trying to get here? How do they try to get that? What sort of things do they change in their voice or in their delivery to get it? And, you know, whether it's Marius and Les Mis or Gutenberg in Gutenberg the musical, it's obviously a different style because it's comedy and everything. I do a lot of Gaslight as well, and that's a very different acting style. But, you know, it all comes from the same place.
How about balancing shows and, you know, everyday life? Because that is a lot, and especially for both of you. You both do a lot of theater, and so how do you balance that kind of with normal adult responsibilities and other jobs, things like that?
I think anybody who does theater, you know, kind of, it's very easy to get caught up in it. And anybody who does theater knows that it's a labor of love. They do it because they love it and they're passionate about it. And so, you know, it becomes something that it is very time consuming, but it's something that's also very rewarding and it's easy to sort of like to drive you in that. I have found in the past that, you know, you have to be careful with that because it can eat up, you know, a lot of your time with family, time with your employer, and all of those things. And so, you know, still trying to figure that out as far as like how to balance that as well as you know, as well as you can. I think Danny does a better job of it than I do. Um, but also I don't know when Danny ever sleeps, so you know. What do you think, Danny?
I mean, yeah, here's what I mean. I love doing things in general. Like I've always, I mean, even just thinking about like, what was I going to study? Am I going to study architecture, math, theater? Like I like to do things. I like to live life, you know, and I'm a mom of 4 kids, and it was a lot harder when the kids were a lot younger. And you know, but I'm also really intentional about wanting to spend time with them and connect with them each individually. And I work full time in a nonprofit, and then either with freelance theater or my volunteering, you know, with CYT Tucson. I fill my plate constantly, you know, and it ebbs and flows. I get to a place where I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I say yes to this many things? You know, and I kind of shut down for a second. And then I'm like, I'm not going to say yes to things. And then I'm like, but I want to do things, you know? So, I don't know. I have a meeting with myself, you know, once a week and really just map out what I've got to do and prioritize. But really, like, I think keeping priorities is so important, you know, and realizing like, there's a great object lesson where, you have your jar and you're like, okay, you have all these rocks. Well, it's best to put the big rocks in first, and then the medium rocks and then the small rocks. And then you can pour the sand to fill in all the gaps. But if you tried instead to do it opposite, put in the sand first, you'd get to where you can't put those big rocks in, so making certain that like my kids are most important, and me. And that's also something I've learned, honestly, since being divorced. Honestly, I think more when I was a wife and mother, I definitely would like put everyone else before me. And that's been something that's actually been really healing for me, is to realize like I need to put myself first too. It's like putting your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. So I think for me, over these, like, Tyler and I got divorced 5 years ago now, and I've learned more to put myself first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that like that's going to open my capacity to be there for others that I love, and so prioritizing me and then my kids and our kids' needs, and then beyond that, the job that I'm paid for and love to do, which is at a STEM education nonprofit. And then beyond that, okay, what are other things that I just can't say no to, which is whether it's CYT, whether it's working with, there's other theater organizations that I've worked with town, and any other freelance stuff that I do with film or these concerts, and things like that. I can't stop, and I do sleep. But yeah, I don't know. I just like doing so. Yeah.
You forgot to mention you're also working on a master's in media literacy, so.
I am.
Oh, wow.
Working on a master's, yeah.
That's a whole nother plate. That's a whole nother plate. Filled up a side dish now.
I have side dish. I like eating, so fill the side dishes, desserts. Yeah, I'm working on a master's degree online, with media ethics and social. Oh my gosh, media ethics and social change. And it's just like that theater for good kind of thing, just really storytelling is such a part of the human experience, and how do we tell stories to help ensure more equitable communities, and ensure that everyone's able to have a good quality of life. So yeah, that's
awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, Tyler obviously has a side career as a firefighter, and we've checked all the boxes.
We have.
Every episode of the podcast, I like to play a game with my guests. I think that's a just fun way, and a lot of people like games.
I love it.
I
love
certainly
games.
do.
Yeah.
So I'm calling this game "A Summer in Ohio."
Oh, perfect! Because that's the name of the song.
Yep.
That was good. I see what you did there.
So in the last 5 years, Kathy travels to Ohio for a summer to be in a production of Fiddler on the Roof, hence the song "A Summer in Ohio." So there seems to be a trend that someone pointed out. A Reddit user posted, quote, "Is it just me, or does every single Broadway show have one line that randomly mentions Ohio, like clockwork?"
Ooh.
So I thought I would ask you about 4 Broadway shows that have to do with Ohio in some way. Okay. I will give you 3 one-word clues to guess each musical, and you guys can work together.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Sound good?
Okay.
The first one, your 3 words are dance, documentary, and autism.
Dance, documentary, and autism. Tyler, do you know what this is?
Sounds like a new one.
It's
okay.
It's got one of those 3-word titles that's not Be More Chill. It was on Broadway just like 2 years ago-ish, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what was on Broadway? It was,
I don't know this one.
no.
Was it
Resisting the urge to Google.
I'm trying to think. I know. Was it?
I'm gonna recognize.
I feel like when I hear the name, I think because
as soon as you say it, but I haven't heard it.
It is How to Dance in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
We should have.
Ohio's in the title. Oh my gosh.
For our listeners, How to Dance in
jeez.
Ohio follows young adults and their families as they prepare for the annual spring formal dance. The show features 7 autistic actors and is based on the award-winning HBO documentary of the same name.
That sounds wonderful. And now I want to know more about it.
The second musical, your 3 words are Weber, Street, and Hollywood.
Is it? I'm thinking Andrew Lloyd Webber, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
Street in Hollywood. Is that Sunset
Sunset
Boulevard?
It is.
What is?
Okay. I didn't know it had to do with Ohio. I almost said
No,
Hawaii.
it's in the South.
I'm way off.
Does
she, like-
Ohio? Da, 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 da. It's in there, right?
Yeah, there we got our Tyler Wright concert in here too.
Good.
I saw Sunset Boulevard on Broadway, but I was also like 12.
So yeah, Sunset Boulevard, about Norma Desmond, a movie star longing to return to the movies, features mention of Ohio. Joe, who is a struggling screenwriter, left his newspaper job in Dayton, Ohio to pursue screenwriting, and one of the last lines in the musical is Joe leaving Norma to return back to Dayton.
But he doesn't make it, spoiler alert.
What? Oh my gosh.
First scene in the
Just
musical.
drop
It's
spoilers?
the first scene, and it's a very old movie.
Okay. You've told me we've had conversations about Sunset Boulevard, and you've said we
It's
should watch it, and I
fantastic.
should watch it, but I never have.
The third musical, your 3 clues are Greasers, Rumble, and Ponyboy.
Oh, well,
that's
The Outsiders.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with
Yes.
Ohio? They're in Oklahoma.
So in The Outsiders, which is a book-turned-musical about rival teen gangs, Dallas mentions going to Columbus, Ohio, and that he doesn't ever want to go back.
Oh, my kids are going to be mad at me because they're mad that I like The Outsiders musical and that I haven't read the book.
Oh,
And
not a
because
true
they're fans of the
Outsiders
book.
fan.
I haven't read the book either, so
But the musical is amazing. Like, I loved that. I would love to go right now. I have to resist the urge on a daily basis from just booking flights to New York to see things. So that's what adulting is, honestly, is just resisting urges to go to New York and watch things. So I'm doing it.
and also getting degrees in firefighting and you know.
That's part of adulting too.
Yeah. The last one, this is really difficult, I'm sure, for you both. Author, actor, and Shmuel.
Oh, that's the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Took me a second there. That was
I tried to trick you guys.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Well, now I want to ask you guys a little bit more about the last 5 years. What about that production is meaningful to you? What kind of stuck out to you when you first saw it, heard of it, listened to it?
I mean, it's evolved of what it means to me. I'll speak just for me, from when I first heard it. The last 5 years was kind of a newer musical when I started studying musical theater at BYU. And so it was actually, people were singing it all the time because it's for tenors, at least, you just sit there and you belt on these long notes the whole time. So as far as teaching people how to, belt musical theater style, we used those songs all the time. So it was really familiar. And so at the time, that's all it was to me. It was like, oh, Jason Robert Brown and his cool music and, Parade and Songs for a New World and the last 5 years. And then, of course, it's evolved as being in a relationship, getting married, and then coming to the end of that phase of our relationship, just like Jamie and Kathy, and getting divorced. I mean, this is something we wanted to do for a long time, but it has meant different things to us as we've gone along. And now that we're 5 years divorced, we're a little, admittedly, older than Jamie and Kathy are, but now at the other end of this relationship, just like how in the last 5 years, they're you see them go through the beginning and middle and end of their relationship. It means a whole different thing. I know there were times in our relationship where it was very hard to listen to it, and then times where it was very rewarding and very cathartic. And so it's really meant a lot. We actually we sang the next 10 minutes at our wedding. Just like that's the wedding song.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the wedding song in the last 5 years when Jamie and Kathy get married, and we sang it for us. And so there's a lot in their story that parallels our relationship. And there's a lot, if not more, that does not parallel our relationship. But, the themes of love and making a relationship work, and then coming to the end of that relationship, and then how those feelings of change and evolve, and a lot of the love is still there, but the relationship, doesn't work out. It's a journey for Jamie and Kathy, and it's been a journey for us, for sure. Danny, take it away and make my work make sense.
No, yeah. I mean, like, same. And that, like, I was introduced to it in college, and I again really loved it. I have a lower voice, I'm not like a soaring soprano, and so a lot of the songs in there were like just accessible for me to sing, and so I just loved it to sing. But like Tyler mentioned, just the meaning of it has really changed. There's a lot of pain in it, especially in Kathy's track and Kathy's story. And there's a lot of just a lot of scariness and vulnerability, when you're in a serious committed relationship, and especially if then you're, committing to be married. I don't think anyone really enters marriage like thinking or hoping that it ends. I mean, I hope no one enters marriage like that, and there's just a lot of terrifying things about imagining then a relationship ending. And, so then when I realized I was living it myself, that I was facing myself, divorce, and what does that mean afterwards? What does life after a major relationship look like? It's scary, and there were times in my life where then it was really cathartic, feeling like Kathy really embodied, some of those frustrations or feelings and everything. And like Tyler said, there's also a lot of differences, between it's not, I know it was semi-autobiographical for Jason Robert Brown, but I think it's almost semi-autobiographical for anyone who's been through, people like the themes of just grief or confusion or frustration, or, dealing with your own insecurities and things like that. There's just a lot of there's a lot of humanity in it. And, being able to look at, sometimes I feel like divorce can just seem almost like a bad word, and almost like it's just the most horrible thing. And even me, before I was divorced, I thought that was the most horrible, horrible thing I could think of. And, in so many ways, there's so much beauty in relationships in general, even if for that period of time or that chapter of time you were together and then something is leading you in different directions, it doesn't take away from the beauty and what you learned during that relationship, So for me, in now being 5 years out from my own sort of pivotal semicolon in life, I feel like I'm able to look at it with just a little bit less personal emotional connection, and just really observing just the idea of relationships and the deep humanity and feelings that happen in relationships, at a little bit more of a safe distance. 'Cause it's just really beautiful. Ultimately it's just humanity, on stage. And I just think that it's gorgeous. So.
Beautifully put.
Well, yeah, it sounds
Thanks,
like
Tyler.
the plot of the show kind of ebbs and flows with your relationship, which I think is really beautiful, and also is going to make it more meaningful for the audience, I'm sure. How have you kind of obviously you're still playing a character with Jamie and Kathy, but kind of letting that emotion from your own relationship seep in because you're different people than those characters. How is that kind of, we've talked a lot about balance, but how is that kind of balance played out for you both?
I think as an actor, you kind of have to, tap into your own experience in every role that you bring. And, some roles you can relate to more than others, but it's natural to sort of tap into your own experience and your own emotion dealing with something, as you're acting something. And then one of the great things about theater is it kind of gives you a safe space to sort of feel those emotions and go through those emotions, and then have a moment where, okay, we did that show, the show's over, the rehearsal's over, and we can put those emotions away. And it's this weird thing where it's this sort of like safe place to go through that without really actually having to carry it. You get to sort of put it away at the end. And that's been really nice. It's always finding the balance and then being able to, making sure that you're able to put those things away, and also telling yourself, even though I'm drawing on my own experience, I'm not Jamie. I'm not making the same decisions that, that Jamie did ultimately, or, or anything like that. But it's something that's natural to do, and I think can be good to do, just as long as you can be able to put those things away when the rehearsal's done or when the show's over.
Danny, how about you?
Yeah, I'm grateful. I feel like, I said we've wanted to do this before, we've wanted to do this for years. And I'm glad that we haven't done it until now, because I think living through some of the pain that I know that I've lived through now has definitely is informing the way I'm approaching the role of Kathy, and I think it is important that, like Tyler said, like he'll realize like he's not Jamie, and they'll all realize like I am not Kathy, but there are still like the music is so I don't know what the right word, I don't want to say like accessible, but just so it just resonates so much with anyone who has felt some of these emotions, that it like now, like when I'm singing, that at the beginning, it starts off as pretty much a downer, just like I'm still hurting, it's a pretty tough song, and like remembering some of those lowest times going through like a major family change, and remembering like, yeah, there were times I would be on the fetal position just sobbing, thinking like I don't know how I can go on, and I have gone on, and my life's wonderful. Like that's what the resilience of relationships and humans is amazing, And so, but having your own experiences to then draw upon, I think just hopefully, will add some depth to a performance. And I think that, I'm grateful for the things that do resonate with me in the show, that I can, that there's something to draw from there.
The show in itself is so vulnerable in a very beautiful way. And I also think that the venue choice is going to impact that as well. Was that kind of your thought process with picking the Cabaret Theater at Arizona Theater Company? Was that kind of intimacy?
Yeah, we knew we wanted
Yeah, absolutely. I think a number of things go into a venue choice. Oh, you can go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, sorry. No, yeah. We were going to say the same thing, that, we wanted to pick a space that had that sort of intimate setting to it. I don't think I've never really seen it in a huge space or anything like that, but I think that this show does best when you're right there with the audience. And some of the stuff, we're the cabaret space, if you haven't been, is a little stage, but there's also some playing space kind of in front, right where the audience is sitting. And, so some of that is really going to be up there and close. And that was definitely a consideration going into it.
What has your rehearsal process looked like so far? Jaden Peterson, your director, helped earlier in the episode introduce the episode and shared a fun fact about the last 5 years.
Awesome.
But what has so far your process been? Where are you rehearsing? How are you going to transfer that onto the cabaret stage?
Yeah. So, so we had been sort of just rehearsing ourselves and just in like learning the music and making sure that we're showing up to rehearsals, like being really familiar with the music, having it memorized. We know that time is of the essence. We just got approval of the licensing, so you're not really supposed to rehearse much before you are approved to do the show. So really just making sure that once we got licensing, that we could really hit the ground running.
In a way, we've been
and
rehearsing
so right
the
now,
last 20 years. So
right. So now we're rehearsing like at really in my living room. The cabaret space is small, and my living room is just a little bit smaller. But we've been rehearsing in my living room, and now once we'll be in the space for a week. And what's nice is like it's an hour and a half show with 2 people, whereas like if you're teching through doing tech rehearsals for a large show I just directed The Sound of Music, which had 75 or 80 people in the cast. So teching that show and making sure like, okay, let's do spacing rehearsal, let's make sure this transition's good and everything. What's nice is that will be, as we translate it from my living room, into the theater, we'll have time to really like go through and probably run through it quite a few times that week, whereas like in a larger show, sometimes, in a tech rehearsal night, you make it through the first third of the show or something, just because with more people is like more complex. So yeah, right now, my living room, and
and it's
we did a sing through with the pianist, in her living room. And so, really it's like, living room to living room until we transfer to theater.
It's been absolutely great to have Jaden coming over though, and keeping us, on task, rather than just the 2 of us just being like, you want to do this right now in the living room? Jaden has wanted to do this show for a very long time as well. And so he has come in knowing this show, front to back.
He knows it so backwards and yes, like it is. I thought I was familiar with the show, but he knows every single note, can conduct it like in his sleep, every rhythm, and like having someone know, like he and just with so many ideas, and you can tell that he's thought about it for so long, just how to like it is part of the show, that the timeline, it's not a chronological timeline, so how do you make sure anyone who isn't familiar with the show that's translated and they're not just confused, and so he already comes with like a concept and ideas to like to just make sure that what we're wanting to get across and what he's wanting to get across is really translated, so I've appreciated. He's really, really awesome, and he's gonna just go really far in theater in general. Like he's just a really, really cool person.
Another Catalina Foothills alum, as are you, Nate. So let's.
Yes, not alum yet. We're getting there. Yeah, Jaden is about the biggest Jason Robert Brown fan I think I've ever met.
Yeah. It's really, really awesome to have someone who so thoroughly loves the show and so thoroughly knows the show, especially with this short rehearsal period, it's a joy. It is a joy every time.
Well, I'm curious if there's kind of one thing about the show that you are most excited to share when you put it on Tyler, we'll start with you.
Huh. You know, it's a shame. So Jamie and Kathy in the show, part of the whole storytelling mechanic of this show is that they're experiencing this relationship. He's experiencing it forwards. She's experiencing it in reverse, or at least we see the relationship from her perspective in reverse. And then there's a moment where they come together in the middle and they sing the next 10 minutes. And it's really the only moment that they get to connect with each other and see each other. And like I said, we sang that song at our wedding and we just sound fantastic in that song. And it's really the only time we get to do a duet together, and have both of our voices just going full steam. And Danny and I haven't gotten to do that a lot. Actually, we haven't had a ton of opportunities to do that. So that's a moment that I'm really excited to share, is just the two of us belting our faces off at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just excited to do it. Like I said, like I'm much more on the technical side, with directing and stage managing and designing. So, like, I don't perform all that often. And last time I performed was in a production of Godspell a few years ago, which was a blast. But so really, like, it's a vulnerable, like, I'm feeling those insecurities. I'm feeling that vulnerability of putting myself out there in this way, but I'm really excited to do it. I'm really excited to fulfill this goal that we've had for a really long time and share it in this way, and really, like, share it out to audience members who want to come see it. So I'm excited to, because it's a rarity for me to push myself in this way and to do that. So yeah.
I like to close out every episode of the podcast with the same 3 questions for every guest, so our listeners have a comparison point. The first question is, what is your favorite musical?
My favorite musical of all time or currently?
Whichever you choose.
Okay. Probably my favorite musical is Hadestown. It is. It's fantastic. I love it so much.
Never a bad choice.
Nope.
It's almost, it's one of those shows that's, like, from start to finish, pretty much perfect.
Yeah. Like, no notes. Yeah. It's amazing.
Tyler, we are jumping into those 3 questions. The first one is, what is your favorite musical?
I give one of 2 answers every 2 times. No.
Every other time.
Restart. We'll get it in post. It's fine. Every time I'm asked this question, I give a different answer, because there's 2 musicals that I think are always vying for first place for me. And they're both Stephen Sondheim. And if I'm feeling in a dark place, it's Sweeney Todd. And if I'm feeling very hopeful and optimistic, it's Sunday in the Park with George. I really cannot choose a favorite between those 2.
Those 2, we were talking about how Hadestown is, like, perfect from start to finish, and those 2 also, like, storytelling for the audience, they're just beautiful pieces.
It really is. I would love to do Sunday in the Park with George sometime before I'm
not those Wright brothers. Make it happen.
Oh. That's a lot more than our 2-hander Gutenbergs and last 5 years. We'll work up to it. We will work up to it.
Yeah.
The second question is, what actor did you look up to as a young performer and why?
Is it lame if I say Mandy Patinkin? I mean, like, that's...
No, why would that be lame?
That's not lame.
I mean, he was Inigo Montoya, but also then, like, that voice, for me, it was, that's what I've always just tried to get my voice to as a young actor. And he's still just as entertaining. I saw him when he came to Tucson just, I don't know, within the last year. And He's just so entertaining, so fantastic. What a voice. So for me, it's always been Mandy Patinkin. Again, Sunday in the Park with George.
Yeah, and if I'm thinking really, really early, honestly, like was Judy Garland, because when I was like Dorothy in second grade, I was just wanted to be just like Judy Garland. But I think, I don't know, more seriously or recently over the past like many years, would even just be Tina Fey, because like she does act, but there's so much of that she produces, that I just really look up to her and just really feel like we'd be great friends. So yeah.
Well, maybe she'll hear this.
Maybe
yeah.
she'll hear this.
Tina, are you listening?
She's very big in the podcast
Tyler
world.
Yeah, maybe she will. Who knows?
Tyler, can we get a "My name is Tyler Wright" in the Inigo Montoya voice?
My name is Tyler Wright. You kill my father. Prepare to die.
Yeah.
Great job.
The final question of the Theater Threes is, what advice do you have for theater kids or anyone wanting to get into theater?
My advice would just be, and it seems very trite and very lame, but like most true things are, like, just to really like be yourself. Like it really, like, I think so often, we do want to be better, and like striving to be better for ourselves is good, like in expanding and strengthening like our skills and stuff, but we don't have to try to be something that we aren't, like each one of us with our lived experience that we have and our quirks that we have and our eccentricities and our passions and our like, you are bringing something, to the table. And I think one of the most beautiful things is when we see, whenever in our lives, whether we're 5 or 10 or 25, once we like realize that and give ourselves permission to be like wholly who we are, I think that's when we like really start to make magic. And it's I think it's a lifetime thing. We're still confronted with insecurities and things like that as we go along. But that would be the biggest advice I would give, that like each person truly has something unique to bring to the world, and their unique perspective is important. And so they should be, confident to share it.
That is such good advice. And it's something that does take a long time to figure out what be yourself really means. But when you unlock that, and when you realize that who you are, whoever you are, is worthy of, whether it's a theatrical role or just anything in life, when you figure that out, it's like you've unlocked the key. And it's, it sounds so lame, but you're like, oh, it was just me the whole time. It was just me being me. That's what I can bring. I guess the only other thing I can say for young people in theater and looking to get into theater is, that who you are off the stage matters just as much, if not more, than what the performance that you're giving on stage. We all do theater and we create art because we find it fulfilling, because it uplifts us, and people want to work with other people who bring that energy of being uplifting. And so,
Yeah.
who the person who you are off stage is, I think matters in a lot of cases a lot more than what you can bring on stage. It's kind of the nice way of saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. That sounds a little, that sounds a little cynical. I'm trying to put it in a little more positive way of like, bring something to the table, to the collaborative artistic experience, and don't take away from it.
Yeah, like bring your best self, and the best self might be like performing wise, but it's also being honest and having integrity and being kind and being helpful and being excited and being, like all of those things really add to something being a really fulfilling experience and opens doors, like coming to projects, showing up at projects like that really opens doors. And I've definitely seen that in my life.
Well, thank you guys so much for, being here and sharing. And I'm so happy that the last 5 years has, come at a time in your lives that feels, I think, at least to me, very beautiful and it's fate. And so I'm really happy for you both. And I'm so excited to see it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nate. Thanks for having us on here.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you both so much for joining me today. If you are interested in purchasing tickets for the last 5 years, see the link in the show notes. You can also find the social media pages for Not Those Wright Brothers and more information about CYT in the same place. It was such a joy to interview these two incredible people. Thank you for tuning in and for your support of the arts. TheatreQs is produced by Nate Wiley Productions and me, Nathaniel Wiley, featuring music by Jeffrey Evans. Jeff Evans is a musician and choir teacher from Tucson, Arizona. The song that you heard in this episode is Highway Breakdown Song. Take it away, Mr. Evans.
Oh, someday I will make it there. Until then, I'll just sit beside the chariot that will carry me home, no matter the trouble we find.
If you like what you hear in this podcast, follow the podcast and check out our website, natewileyproductions.com, for more information about the podcast, articles on small businesses, photo galleries, and much, much more. Thank you all for listening today.